corporate ethics, in which we want to explore together some ways or some approaches to get the most powerful institution of our kind to release some of the potential that it has. It's a real honor for Jack and Randy and Clancy and Cyprian and me to be with the rest of you, but also to be with each other.
Where are the rest of us?
This is one of the folks who get together, which I appreciate very much.
Networking.
Yeah, you bet. And this is obviously going to be a participative session, though the five of us have something to say to start us off. It's designed to start off a participative session. And we hope it's all right if we have a little fun. I've worked with some groups in Malaysia that think if you're having fun, it can't be real. And our experience is if you're not having fun, you're not real. So anyway, we'd like to do that a bit. Maybe we could start with by just going around very quickly and say what's your name, what you do, and what's something you enjoy about your work. I'm John. I'm from Denver these days, but Kuala Lumpur the rest of the time. And I enjoy traveling and meeting people.
Blaze Sands. I pay the bills by working with families in home, doing parenting training, skill building with kids with behavioral issues. But I'm also working part-time in the Human Resource Development Department of the Mayland Community College, and taught a class there on 10 skills to work success. So I'm hoping to expand that work.
Right, thank you.
Michael Watson. I'm still in school, so I...
What's something you enjoy about school?
Reading.
Fair enough.
Well, really, I enjoy history, but...
Okay.
That's okay.
Good.
Mary Ann Mann. We live in Rockville, Maryland. And I am currently doing volunteer work in several of our Gaithersburg Presbyterian outreach groups. And I enjoy it, and it's just one of those things that at the end of each time you realize how much need there is and how fortunate we are to be able to serve.
Thank you.
Bill Westry. I live in Bellevue, Washington. I'm completing my career at the Boeing Company, and I work in structural design of composite airplanes. And, I enjoy innovation.
Thank you.
I'm Cyprian D'Souza. I work at a company called Capgemini. I look after the operations of one of the divisions of the Capgemini that deals with the financial services. I travel a lot, so I enjoy travel, and I enjoy exploring food while I'm in travel, different parts of the world, and how it's put together and what makes it great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Richard Sims. I split my time, part-time house husband, part-time cab driver. And what I enjoy, I'm looking forward to being a snowbird. So when we left, I live north of Toronto, we had 8 inches of snow, so we're headed to Florida sometime soon as the weather breaks.
Okay, thank you.
Clancy Mann, the faculty at the University of Maryland. International business is my portfolio, and I enjoy very much developing curriculum, teaching, and live with my wife, Mary Ann, out in Maryland.
Stuart Umpleby. I teach at George Washington University at the business school.
Thank you. What do you enjoy about that?
I sort of work on the philosophy of science on the side.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm Randy Williams, and my wife and I own and operate a residential real estate company. And what I like about it is we've discovered that real estate's not about selling homes, it's about building relationships.
Thank you.
Jack Ellis. I live in community in
Lilibu, Mexico, after 22 years in India. My work is primarily research in the whole question of spirit. And one of the things I enjoy is the TED seminars on the internet.
Okay.
Judy Gillis, Mexico. Wish I was closer to it right now.
Thank you. Rick?
Rick Walters, I live in Dallas. Been doing organization development for the past 25 years. Has 12 or 13 in IT groups. And what was the question? What makes you...
What do you enjoy about your work?
Over and over and over again, what I enjoy the most is, I don't know how many of you worked around IT projects, but they're fraught with failure and they demoralize people. So when you facilitate them, they go really well. The people are so happy. And that just fills me up every time. They can't believe it, they don't know how it happened, but they're just so much more happy to be on that project and not wanting to get off of it.
Thank you. We're asking everybody your name, what you do, and what you enjoy about your work.
And everybody else said already?
Yes.
My name is Roseanne Sands. I do a lot of things.
Take care of the cats.
Yeah, I take care of the cats. But I like to do some writing, and sometimes I do workshops. What do I enjoy about it? Creativity. I like to be creative and feel the enthusiasm that comes with and also meeting new people and seeing each person's uniqueness.
Thank you. Well, our mandate in this time together is to explore ways and trying to be practical about corporate ethics, or finding ways for institutions of business to be corporately, socially responsible. And we want to do that. We've got 4 sessions designed, and apparently we're going to be able to have 3. And we're trying to see how tonight's can come together. But they're basically the topics on this morning. We want to look at the external environment in which organizations have to operate. What are the powers and forces that are calling for change and making ethics a mandate rather than just a moral ought, making it an indicative. Then this afternoon we want to look, Clancy and Randy are going to lead us in looking at the role of corporations in society, get a picture of the authentic dynamics and how that works and how you might determine what's socially responsible and what's not. This evening, Jack and maybe Cyprian together, depending on how we work out the combination, we're looking at the element of spirit in organizational transformation, and also building a value-centered corporate culture is Cyprian's thing. Now, to start with, these are the presentations we want to start with this session, but then a lot of the important part of the session will be our talking together. Hi.
Hi, I'm Liesl.
You're
Liesl from New York.
from New York. And what do you do and what do you enjoy about your work, Lisa?
I just retired as the leader of the Brooklyn Ethical Society, clergy-wise, a humanist religious group. But I followed the ICA and the top methods for a long time as part of the National Caucus of Neighborhood Women and Roots International. So mutual support among women leading grassroots movements.
Okay.
It's my passion. And
thank you. And
values-based organizing.
As those of us who work with him know that Joe was very conscious of the trends going on in society. And he talked about the waves of history and the 7 revolutions that were going on. And the point of all that was to get clear about what's the context in which we have to operate ethically, or to be. He considered the trends of history to be acts of God to which we were required to respond. And so it seems to me also that any organization that wants to be corporately socially responsible, however you say that in the adverb, needs to be aware of what's going on in the trend. So I'd like to take a few minutes today to sort of capsulize the perspective that my time in Malaysia and the U.S. has enabled me to see some of the trends that are going on. And to do that, and you don't have to take good notes because there's a stack of this presentation on the table over there, and I may or may not do it all the way it's written, particularly without the PowerPoint.
Good thing you got trained in this methodology.
Yes, exactly. Any organization, particularly a business organization, has three dynamics that Clancy will go into in much greater detail this afternoon. The enterprise, or the operation is, in Clancy's terms, enterprise. The structure of an organization, and the corporate culture. And I don't want to go into any detail about that, but only to make the point that those are operative in any organization. And the point is, each one of those is being impacted by external trends that are calling for change. For example, the enterprise is being dramatically attacked by high tech. And the computer revolution has come so far, it's just incredible. But Jack put up a website last week, the TED. If you haven't seen it, you ought to look at it, where the guy's passion is to get us away from sitting in front of a machine and become interactive. So he's got a machine that you wear around your neck. It's sort of a light-hearted necklace. And when you want to take a photo, you go like this, and it takes a photo. If you want to project it on the wall, you go like that, and it's on the wall. If you want to put it into your laptop, you go like that, and it's in your laptop. I mean, the technology is just incredible these days. And you can see that on the TED website if you want to, TED.com. But the important thing is what we're doing with those, what business is doing with those capacities. Now, we work with some companies where they were complaining about people doing Facebook and Twitter and email to the people in the next cubicle. They weren't doing any human interface. They were just electronic interface, but that's neither here nor there. We're putting capacities inside our products. Toyota now has the capacity to wake up a sleepy driver. Somehow it knows if you're asleep, and a light flashes on the screen. And if that doesn't work and it still perceives you're sleeping, an alarm clock goes off. And if that doesn't work, it hits you in the back. And if that doesn't work, it pulls over and stops. So Toyota has got capacities that are out of sight. I think the most, insurance companies, there are insurance companies that are able to pay claims on site of the accident. If you have an auto accident, this auto insurance company has installed a chip in your car. It perceives the accident, dispatches a van to your car. And the van is equipped with a wireless and the printer, and it's an easy chair and soft drinks for the driver. And so you're able to take it easy while they print out your check and hand it to you, and you're off. You know? It's almost incredible. The most incredible one to me is the Japanese high-tech toilet. Have you heard about that?
No.
Well, the seat's heated, of course, because it's sometimes cold in Japan. You can adjust the temperature. And it's paperless, and that's not unusual in Asia. But you can adjust the angle and temperature of the spray. And when that finishes, a blow dryer comes on and takes care of that kind of spray. And while you're seated there, it weighs you and takes your temperature and blood pressure and pulse rate and transmits all that to your medical records. And some have individual TV screens you can pull around to watch your TV. Companies who've installed these have put alarm clocks in the room to keep people from taking too much. The technology has transformed our operation. And the only way to possibly survive in that situation is innovation. And the thing about technology is it's not about doing the same stuff better and faster. That's easy. the challenge is to have the imagination to do different things. And so that's where the struggle comes. And Jack Welch has said that if the changes outside the company are faster than the changes inside the company, the end is in sight. So a major dimension of affecting our enterprise dimension is high tech. Over here on the organizational side, the structure side, is high touch. That is, participation has become a way of life. This wasn't always the case. When I started work, when the boss said jump, you said, "How high, sir?" on your way up. And if you try to tell anybody to jump today, they look at you like they think you're out of your mind. Why jump? Why me? Why not somebody else? Why not accomplish it? I mean, people want to participate in the decisions that affect them. And so that's created a dramatic struggle in the structure of organizations, because it's relatively easy. A lot of people know how to do participation in the sense of deliberation and brainstorming. But what do you do with the brainstorm? Because companies particularly have to make decisions fast enough to stay competitive and still have the participation. And so the tension between participation and quick decision making is where it's at today. That's a struggle. A lot of experimentation going on in organizations. There are team-based organizations, flat organizations, and there's even jobless companies. And one of the most unique ones in my reading has been a Maverick. The book is Maverick. It's Simco, a manufacturing company in Brazil, that call itself the ultimately democratic organization, where everybody in the company, and it's a big manufacturing company, participates in every decision, including the CEO's salary. And he wrote the book, and he said he marked it as a note of pride, where 3 times after he'd been away on long trips, his office had been moved, and each time it got smaller. And so it's probably not so unique now as it was when it came out in about 10 years ago. So there's a lot of experimentation going on in here. But I think the key has been teamwork. I mean, that seems to be the value that's being held in all of these experimentations. People sense that all the roles are important, and it's important to acknowledge all the roles. I think the key to that is respect and admiration, acknowledgement, and we're not good at that yet. But somehow the experimentation is going on in the way groups structure themselves in order to be effective and to make moves. In terms of corporate culture, it's high expectations. People have said that they want more out of the work than just a salary. In fact, somebody said work is not only about making a living, it's also about making a difference. And when people can see the difference their work makes, it doesn't much matter what they're doing, so long as it contributes to a broader operation, a broader purpose. And so the response to that is shared vision. When people have that sort of shared vision, and we know that from being in Chicago with the Institute, or being with the Institute wherever we were, that so long as we had a shared vision, it didn't matter whether we were cooking meals or washing dishes or out visiting people or whatever we were doing. We were still driven. Our corporate culture was fine. We had it, and our expectations were being realized. Now this is what I refer to as sort of primary influences in our operation today. But there's another wave of history that sort of hit like a tsunami that I'm calling the paper secondary, but I'm not sure that has anything to do with priority or importance. The recession that we've been afflicted with in terms of our enterprise has sort of disclosed the fragility of our economic structure. The housing crisis has left numerous people homeless and mortgages undone. The jobless rate is accelerating and so forth. And in the midst of that, we're seeing tremendous resurgence, revival, development in India and China that has half the world's population, or approximately that, a little less than half, I guess. And it's coming in Africa. Now, the interesting thing about that, I found out this last year, was population growth projections are to be about 80 million a year until about 2050. And all of that comes from Africa and undeveloped Asia. So immense increase in the dispossessed, the poor, the underdeveloped, while there's a huge development going on in India and China particularly, but also Southeast Asia, Malaysia, where I live. You wouldn't recognize it if you hadn't been there in the last 10 years. Just incredible. Now, all that's exciting, but the same article said to support the present population of the world at Western standards to which people are aspiring would take the resources of 5 planets. So something about our economic system is not just a matter of tweaking this or that. We got a way to go. That was sobering to me in an incredible way, because I just think, well, if we get over this recession here, and there's this systemic matters, not just moral matters at hand here. So we need to work there. In terms of the high touch, what we've encountered, or in terms of the structure, what we've encountered is corruption. And I think the Enron scandal and the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme and all those things have just undercut people's respect for the corporate sector. And most assume that it's based on greed, and that's it. Well, that's not necessarily true, but you can see their point. But with the corruption has always been there, and there's even, Transparency International, it's rated 180 nations in degrees of corruptness. Denmark is at the top with a score of, what is Denmark's score? Well, anyway, Denmark was number 1 with, I think, about a 9.3 score. Somalia was at the bottom with about a 1. The U.S. was number 18 with a 7.3 score. So it's not like corruption is anything new, but it's like our disgust with it, our suspicion of organizations, that's fairly new in our time. And I think what we need is, well, the issue is corruption happens when there's a deliberate violation of a known standards. The thing is, in the global society, they are not common standards. What we regard as bribery in Malaysia is regarded as doing business with friends. And so naturally you give gifts to friends, and you expect gifts from friends. It's not bribery. I mean, it's different. Or nepotism, as we see it in the U.S., in India, I suspect, Cyprian can say more about this than I, but it's a matter of taking care of your family. Intellectual property violations in China. But the Chinese, in a corporate sort of setting, collective society, all the knowledge belongs to all the people. So it's a different set of values. They're not global values, that's my point. And so to deal with what we call corruption and suspicion of organizations means an attention to corporate governance that's not going to finally decide everything, given all the stakeholders, but is going to maybe help us to be transparent about where we stand. That may be all we can anticipate here. Let's see, this last one about the corporate culture has encountered diversity And in the midst of that, a kind of polarization. People of all varieties have come to work together. The space that once divided us doesn't anymore. We're in touch with all sorts of diversity. And it's led to a strange sort of polarization. There's a book out called The Big Sort, how the, let me see, find the name of it here. It's
Page 7.
Page 7, thank you. The Big Sort is why the clustering of like-minded America is tearing us apart. The thesis of this book is that our neighborhoods that used to be points of diversity, we've sorted ourselves into like-minded people, and each like-minded group gets more and more radical around, since they're not around anybody else that's challenged. You get more and more radical, and then opposing viewpoints are regarded as something to be fought, not something to be included and accommodated. You see that in our healthcare debate these days, and even in the ICA, you're on the listserv and found that on the Bishop Spahn arguments lately, the last week or so, where people are calling each other heretics and so forth. It's gotten belligerent. If you don't think like I do, well, by damn it, you're wrong. You know, and that sort of attitude in a world that we've got today that's global just won't get us very far. So we got a way to go on the this dimension. I think this has made companies turn toward taking a serious look at business ethics. And I know Exxon has a seminar in business ethics that we've been a part of in Malaysia, where they've taken their stand and say, here we stand, and if you're with us, you don't have to be with us, but if you're with us, this is what we expect. Shell and BP have departments of diversity that have made it a mandate, at least BP has, for its senior executives at the very top. They are accountable yearly at the standard of diversity they've achieved in their organization. And that means sexual, or racial, or religious, all sorts of diversity, but they must incorporate. So in one sense, corporations are taking the lead for us on that front, or at least have the possibility of it. So these are some of the things I found to be relevant trends of the times, both the primary and the secondary score of them. What are your comments or questions or thoughts on these matters? Let's take a few minutes on that and then get into a workshop where we explore something a little different.